I want to start with what it looked like from the outside, because from the outside it looked perfect, and that is exactly the problem I am here to talk about. I was 31 years old. I had a title, I had a salary with a comma in it that made people react when I told them. I had an apartment in the right part of the city, and a car that said something about me before I even opened my mouth. At dinner parties, people would ask what I did, and when I told them, I watched their faces change. A small but visible upgrade in how they were looking at me. I learned to time the pause before I said it. I'm not proud of that. What nobody saw was what happened every Sunday evening. Around 6 or 7, something would begin in my chest, a slow tightening, like a hand closing around something soft. Monday was coming, and I could not explain why that felt like a threat. I had been in this career for 8 years. I chose it at 22 because it paid well and it impressed people, and it was the kind of thing you could say at a dinner party and watch faces change. I chose it for every reason except the right one. Around year 6, I started noticing a question appearing in my mind. Not loudly, just appearing, like a small light blinking in a corner of a large, dark room. The question was, is this it? Not in a dramatic way, just genuinely. Is this the whole shape of the thing? I ignored it for 2 years. I got better at ignoring it. I worked harder, I earned more, I upgraded things. Every upgrade silenced the question for a few weeks. Then it came back, a little louder each time. The moment I could not ignore it anymore came on a Tuesday. Nothing dramatic happened. I was sitting in a meeting that was exactly the same as 400 meetings before it, and I looked around the room and I thought, I have no idea who I am outside of this room. Not who I am professionally, who I actually am. What I would do on a morning with no obligations. What I would read if no one was watching. What I would build if there was no salary at the end of it. I did not know. I went home that Tuesday and I sat on my sofa and I tried to answer those questions honestly. And the honest answer to almost all of them was, I do not know. 8 years of building a career, and I had not spent a single deliberate hour building myself. I did not quit that week. I want to be clear about the timeline. What happened that week was that I started paying attention. I started noticing what lit something in me and what did not. And what I noticed was that almost nothing in my professional life lit anything up anymore. I started doing things quietly on the side, small things, an online course in something that had nothing to do with my career, a notebook where I wrote things down with no purpose, a morning walk with no podcast and no phone, just to see what my own mind did when left alone. My own mind, left alone, turned out to be quite interesting. It had opinions I had never let it express, directions it wanted to move in that I had been too busy to notice, curiosity about things that had no obvious application. I had been ignoring a whole person. The conversation with my manager was 9 months after that Tuesday meeting. 9 months of paying attention. 9 months of the question getting louder and my answers getting clearer. I walked in and I handed in my notice, and my hands were steady. She asked me where I was going. I said I did not know exactly. She looked at me the way people look at someone who has just said something they can't quite process. She said, "You're leaving a 6-figure salary for I don't know exactly?" I said, "Yes, that's what I'm doing." The reactions from people in my life covered the full range. Some were supportive, most were confused, a few were quietly horrified. My father asked me 3 times in the same conversation if I was sure. My mother called me the next day and asked if everything was okay at home. The last day in the office was strange. People said the usual things. Someone brought a cake. I smiled through all of it. In the lift going down for the last time, I waited to feel something large, relief or grief or fear. What I felt was quiet, just quiet. The first week without the job was the strangest week of my adult life. I woke up on Monday and there was nowhere I had to be, nothing I had to produce, no one waiting for a report or a decision. I sat at my kitchen table for 2 hours, just sitting there, not knowing what a person does with a morning that belongs entirely to them. By the 3rd week, I started to find out, slowly, without forcing it. I picked up things I had put down years ago. I discovered things I had never tried because I had never had the space to be curious about them. I made bad attempts at things and found out I didn't mind failing at something I had actually chosen. Failing at something I chose just meant try differently. It didn't mean anything about my worth. 6 months in, I had a clearer picture of who I actually was than I had ever had in 31 years of living. Not a complete picture, but a real one. Not the version built for dinner party approval, the version that existed when no one was watching and nothing was at stake. To walk away from a 6-figure career to find out who you actually are. It's not a weekend exercise. It's not a personality test or a meditation retreat. It's a long and sometimes uncomfortable practice of paying attention to yourself honestly, of noticing what is real and what is performance. Most people never do it because it's easier not to. I walked away from a 6-figure career to find out who I actually was. What I found was someone I genuinely liked, someone with direction that came from inside rather than outside, someone who could sit in a room alone on a quiet Tuesday morning and feel completely at home. That person was always there. I just had to stop performing long enough to meet them.